Time for something a little different. This is my daily 2010 Volvo XC70. It was a D5 diesel engine. It's now a T6. And today I'm going to go through the process of installing a subwoofer. For anybody watching this and wondering what's going on with the 240, it's still ongoing. I haven't dynoed it yet. Just waiting on a set of injectors before I can do anything there. So I haven't abandoned that. It hasn't been too long, but that is still happening. I've been driving it around a little bit. For anyone who hasn't seen those videos yet, please check them out. But yeah, today I'll continue with this subwoofer install and show what it's all about. So before I go to the effort of installing this, I want to make sure that it actually connects up and works. So as far as connections go, it's just got a power connector and it connects to the fiber optic audio network in the car. So this car had a factory fitted GPS, and the factory fitted GPS no longer works. So underneath here is the DVD player for the GPS, which has a fiber optic connection to the audio network. So I'm going to steal that. I'm going to connect up a wire for the power, just dodgy for now, and I'm going to see if it turns on and recognizes it. So I'll pull apart some of this floor just to get to the stuff underneath, and we'll go from there. Quick test fit to make sure it's all going to go in there. All the studs are already in the floor, so yeah, it bolts up to the frame that holds the center seat. Doesn't clash with anything, so it's good. It's going to work. Okay, made a hole. Removed all the panels to get to what I need to. There's the factory GPS DVD player. These two cables are not factory. I've added those. That's for a future project, which I'll get to later on. But I've removed probably more than I need to. But what I really want is that fiber. Those two orange fiber leads there are what I need to redirect to that amp over there. So it does actually run through there, and up this side, which is convenient because that's where it needs to go. So I'm just going to sit the amp over here for now, just so I can plug it in and test it before I start unpinning wires and everything, but that's the goal. Alright, so I've just gone through my box of cables looking for a plug to suit this. So I believe the factory under seat amp uses the same. So I went through my previous box of looms. I believe this is the one I took from the amp under the seat, and as much wire as I could. So I've got an earth which has a normal eyelet on it, and that's a bare wire on the other ends, but that's okay. And that goes in there. So that's good. All I need to do now is reroute that through the rear section of the loom to the fuse panel and get another one of those pins, because that's how it'll connect up. So I've got to get one of those, work out what type of pin that is, and either crimp that in, or I'll just solder and join it to whatever's left here. But that should work. Just running through the same process that Yuri did. So removing the most security, which is the audio network, so I can actually make some changes here. So we'll see what happens here. I've got the car hooked up on a charger at the moment because I haven't used it in a few weeks. So I've got the charger on the front. I've also got a power pack connected to the amplifier for the subwoofer on the back. Just for now, just so I can test it before I go any further. Should be worth it. Something has happened here. Alright, I'll give it a test. Okay, bit of a setback with the V-dash configuration change, so I'm just going to park that for the moment, and I'll come back to installing this properly, and then I'll go back to V-dash, hopefully with the resolution. So there's the optical, or the most network audio cable. So I need to unwrap that from this harness that goes there, around the back of there, and into that channel. I figure if I unwrap it back to about here, it should be able to loop back to where the amp sits quite nicely without having to go any further, because it is quite long. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll pull this fuse panel off and start getting some power wires run. Alright, so small observation. It's not really a surprise, but an observation for me. This most audio network is a big loop. So open-ended like that, the circuit doesn't complete. So if you turn on the radio right now, it'll flash on and then turn straight back off again. I need to have that connected to a device and the device powered on before the radio will turn on, which is fine. Just means that I'll need to actually hook up power to the amplifier while I'm doing testing to get the actual radio to work. So no big deal. I've unwrapped most of it. I'm going to go a little bit further, and I've got some screws and stuff out of my leftover tub from my previous Volvo I stripped. So a couple of bolts that fit and a couple of plastic nuts for the back two studs, and yeah, so I'll put that in and see how we go. Amplifier's all mounted down firm now, so I'm just running the optical cable and the power. So the key with cabling, more specifically optical, but many cabling, is you want to keep it away from anything that will snag or rub through it. So I'm going to run it underneath this brace, and then I'm going to run it around behind underneath here and then out again. The idea with that is you don't want to have any really sharp bends in the optical. It's not glass, it's plastic, but it still doesn't like sharp bends. So something like that will be okay, and I'll just zip it out of the way just so it doesn't go anywhere it shouldn't. And those are the two power cables, which will reach to the factory earth points here or there, and to the 12 volt supply in one of these fuse boxes. I'll find a free spot. I think there is actually one labelled subwoofer, so that's where it'll go if I can work out which one that is and add the relevant fuse in, and we should be golden. Okay, a bit more progress. I've got the wiring wrapped in fleece tape, tucked underneath here. It comes back out here, and it runs across underneath. Fleece tape all the way across to here. This one here is the power, which needs to go into one of these fuses. And over here is the earth, which I just need to put an eyelet on for here. And then that circuit is done. So get in there. Alright, kicking along now, spare wheel back in. Earth is done. I'm ready to put the floor back in here. And then just do the main wire, which I've tucked in there. So yeah, time to find something in the fuse panel. Just put my subfloor back in just to see where I need to cut. It's where I thought I needed to anyway. The part that's folded and sticking up, there's a line already. So I'll cut straight across there, and then the amp fits behind it. So I don't really use that little cavity anyway, just store some things that I've never used, so no harm. Alright, so referring to the wiring diagram for this car, it shows that subwoofer module is fuse FD3. FD is the blue, the bottom fuse panel in this group of three. Different orientation for a sedan. It's the end one closest to the rear of the car on a sedan, but either way. And we can see that FD3, which is, I think this one here, is not populated on my car because it did not come with a subwoofer. So if we look through the other ones, the 10 amp fuse is for the high level display, which is something I have, so that 10 amp one is there. 2 is not listed, which will be the second one here, which is fine. Third one, subwoofer. Fourth one is the digital radio, which I don't have either, so understandable that's missing. 25 for the front amp. 15 for infotainment, which is fine, and 5 for the firing accessory, so that makes sense. So fuse 3, which is directly next to 5, needs to have a 25 amp fuse in it, and I need to pin that free spot in there with the port, run that cable to there. We should be in business. Okay, now on the back of the fuse panel, the location I need to fuse is, or pin to, is that one right there. So I'll find a pin and I'll put that in there now. Okay, found a pin. Let's go there. Focus, yep. So that's the pin that this fuse panel uses. It's even got the same color and gauge wire, which is handy. I don't have any of these pins uncrimped, so I'm just gonna expose this wire and solder it together. Not the best way to do it, but I'm not buying one pin just to do this job, so that'll do. I'll expose and solder and plug that in there now. Alright, job done. Bit of heat shrink and I can pin that in. Another thing that might be useful to show, I've done it before but I forgot about it completely. These are modular fuse panels, so they all clip together. You do need to actually unclip this one, because to get the pin in, you need to partially separate the front half from the back half. So what you do is you squeeze these two pins here, or these two sections of plastic, pull that blue bit forward, which I can't do with one hand, and that will allow you to insert the pin. You can't insert the pin unless you do that, so it's kind of a lock to stop the pins coming out accidentally. It's actually a really easy to use and secure design, so that's in there now. I'll clip it back together, tape it up, and we can test. I mean, it'll prove that the amp's powered by the fact the radio turns on. I won't be able to use the sub yet because of issues mentioned earlier, but we'll come back to that and hopefully this works. Okay, install's all done. VDAC configuration is all now done. Let's fire up the radio. You can see my car's fitted with the premium sounds. and a picture of a V70 because of the wiring that I swapped. If you go through the menus now, you should see the subwoofer option right there. So that's now enabled, that's now working. Obviously I've got the music turned right down so I don't get smacked for copyright, but yeah, it's all done. Last piece of the physical install is getting this floor panel to fit back in. I imagine that they've got a different one of these for cars that come fitted with the subwoofer because it hits the webbing. So I'm going to mark and grind out that back webbing section so this will go down without hitting the amp. Yuri also removed that foam on his. I'm not going to do that until I've confirmed it's in the way, but I might have to do that too. Alright, job done. Took out a little bit more than I needed to on that side, but that's not a problem. I did need to peel that piece of foam felt off there because it did hit the amp, and that's probably how Yuri broke his clips, because it just pivots on that bit of foam and that would be enough to cause issues. So that closes now. It's always been a bit tight in that corner, but that's good. Job done. You'd never know I was in there. I did have a little bit of a drama with VDash. Since Yuri did his video, they've changed their process a little bit. And you need to, I think, verify that you're not a shop to get the licensing requirements. So to anybody that's watching this or anyone who's watched Yuri's video and thinking about doing this, please check VDash first and make sure that you are eligible to actually do this feature. You may need to contact VDash support to get your eligibility authorized. Otherwise, there's a €400 annual fee, which it's a bit much for me for such a simple thing. I don't use VDash that often. I don't use it on anyone else's car, so I'd never be able to recover that money. So yeah, check that first. That's a little disclaimer that I have. I got around it by contacting them and telling them what I wanted to do, and they enabled the ability for me to get licenses and enable this feature. I don't know if they're going to do that for everybody, so please check first. Hopefully they change their licensing so it's a bit easier to understand or a bit easier to verify in the future, but you certainly don't want to spend several hundreds of dollars on a subwoofer only to find out that you potentially have to spend several hundreds more to turn it on. So yeah, that's my advice. Check that first. But yeah, job's all done. It's all working. That's it for this video. Next video I'll focus on getting my new GPS music entertainment system working. So as you can see here, the car does have a high level display, but because I did the T6 swap, the factory ICC and CM and everything didn't recognize that I had one of those, and I can't enable it. It wasn't very good anyway. It's out of date. There's been no updates for years, so I've gutted that. It's got a Raspberry Pi in it and a touchscreen now, but I'll show that in the next video, and I can show you how I've done that and what I'd do differently and maybe make some improvements while I'm at it. But that's it for today. There'll be more 240 content and more XC70 content coming soon, so please like and subscribe. Tell me what you want to see, and yeah, have a good day. Thanks all.